Hello and welcome to Comic Culture. I'm Terrence Dollard, a professor in the Department of Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. My guests today are Marco Santucci and Maria-Laura Sanapo from Italy. Welcome to Comic Culture.
Thank you and
Thank you
hello everyone.
Hi everybody.
Well, you are our second international guest, and I'd like to say thanks so much for staying up late to talk with us.
Thanks to you.
Thank you, absolutely. Thank you.
So I wanted to find out, you are in Italy, and how did you get your foot in the door in American comics?
Well, I start.
Yeah.
Okay. I try to explain it in my bad English. Actually, I am in the comic field since more than 20 years. But I started working in American comics only 10 years ago with Marvel Comics. The beginning of my career has been so in Italy with one of the most important publishers here, that is Sergio Bonelli Editore. Sergio Bonelli Editore is one of the biggest publishers of comics in Italy, and they publish comics like Dylan Dog. Maybe you know the movie, but is a very famous comics here. Another very important character, the most important one, is Tex. Joe Kubert, for example, drew a story about Tex some years ago. And for the big part of my career, I worked for them, and I work on different characters like Mr. No, Tex, another series called Dampir, very similar to Dylan Dog, and at some point I decided to try my real passion in the comics, that was the American comics. I always been a huge fan of characters like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, all the heroes from Marvel and DC Comics. And I had the huge fortune to be contacted by Marvel Comics, and my first works was on a mini-series about Spider-Man. So my dreams came true in 2008. After that, I keep working between Italy, USA, and even France for some years. Until 1 year ago, when I decided to start to work only for USA. And at the moment I'm working for DC Comics. It's a fantastic experience, and I had the chance to work on all the main characters of DC Comics, like Batman, Superman. For example, in this week, yesterday, has come out Justice League book drawn by me. So it's a fantastic experience. And in this moment, actually from today, I started to work on a Wonder Woman book. So I'm very happy.
Well, that's got to be a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely yes, because I started to read comics, reading superheroes comics. Even if I worked for many years on more realistic comics that taught me a lot. I have to say that my real passion are the superheroes, because especially because I can bring especially in the look, the reality. I really like the way they've been shown on movies.
Yeah, in a realistic way.
In the realistic way. So I try to make something similar, like other artists, for example, like Brian Hitch and other artists that I admire a lot.
Yeah, your work is very detailed and has a lot of life and energy to it. And I guess we'll go back to that in 1 minute. Maria-Laura, how did you get your start in American comics?
Well, my career is not so long. I'm younger than Marco, and okay, let's start. This is my story. I took a degree in languages when I was 23, And I thought that it wasn't my path. It wasn't my destiny. I thought that I wanted to be a comic artist. So I told my parents, mommy, daddy, I want to be a comic artist after the degree. So my parents were like, what? What? You took a degree with maximum marks and you are telling us that you want to draw? Yes, I want to draw. So, so I met Marco Santucci, who lived in in the same town as mine, but I didn't know until in that moment. So I met him, and he became my mentor. I studied a lot, and then my first story was published in Italy, but it was a very short story. It was about 6 pages, and it was a very small publisher. So my life changed overnight when I started working for DC Comics Bombshell. It is a series based on the main characters, the main female characters of DC Comics, like for example Wonder Woman, Supergirl, etc. in the 40s. So in a very delicate period for everybody, of course. And then I started and I'm still working for Dynamite Comics. Okay. In the meantime, I worked for Titan Comics, which is a British publisher. I did some Assassin's Creed covers. I worked for DreamWorks for the comics of Penguins of Madagascar and Puss in Boots, for example. Now I'm working for Dynamite. For a series called Sheena, the Queen of Jungle, and for the same publisher, I did the comic of Charmed, the series, the comic based on the TV series, the TV show. And yes, I think I told everything. Maybe I missed something.
Maybe, yes.
It's probably I missed something
so.
because I cannot remember. But yes, this is my story.
Yeah.
Well, it's again, like Marco, you start your career with a very big series. DC Bombshells is something that is very popular, and so working on something like that is sort of your first big break in the country. That's got to open a lot of doors for you.
Absolutely. I got my life changed overnight. A lot of people wanted me at conventions. People knew my name, and I was like, oh my god. Yes, when I was, for example, me and Marco attend a lot of conventions, and people stopped at my booth. Oh, you're Maria-Laura Sanapo. Oh my god, I love your work, and it was really, oh my god. I was super enthusiastic about it. So it is what I wanted. So yes, it changed a lot. It's a dream came true, absolutely. Yes, I'm happy about it. Absolutely.
It seems also that when you're working on DC Bombshells, that's a different style of art than if you're doing, you said you were doing the Puss in Boots book, and then you're doing the Charmed book. So these are different styles of art. So how do you work between those genres and still manage to make it look the way you want it to look?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Okay. For Puss in Boots, I did the inks. So the drawings were made by a colleague, Egle Bartolini, which is very, very fantastic artist. And yes, it's very important to be able to change sometimes, to be very, very, sorry? Adapt. Yeah, to adapt yourself to the job they ask you. Because when you decide to turn it in a job, you have to be very flexible. Flexibility is the main thing, the most important thing in this job. So yeah, very important.
More you are flexible, more doors.
The more flexible you are, of course, the more. Yeah, that's true.
And Marco, you said that your current book is the Justice League. Obviously, the film has come out. More people are aware of these characters. So as you're working on this book, are you aware of the hype that's behind the series? Does that impact you at all, or do you just put your head down and keep drawing?
Oh, wait.
Sorry. Could you repeat the question? Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
We are Italians, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm saying is there added pressure when you're working on a book that is so popular?
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you mean because the series is very important. No, actually, for me, I don't think about the pressure. I think that every work I do, I always do it in at my best possibility, at my best strength. So I don't think about it, honestly. Obviously, if I'm doing an important series like Justice League, for me it was fantastic. It's very important. It's a great occasion, a chance to do something very popular. And but when I start the work, I only think that I have to do my work at the best. In fact, many times for me, an important thing is the deadline. I always try to get a good deadline in order to do a good work, because maybe my style could could be nice for some people or some people not, but they couldn't say that there isn't work on my pages,
No, it's
because
very
I put
detailed.
a lot of work.
Sometimes too much.
Sometimes too much.
Too
You're
much
right.
details. Oh my god, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's got every single detail.
Yes,
Oh my
too
god.
much. Sometimes she comes in my studio
Oh my
because we
God.
work in the same house, I'm in two different studios, and say to me, you're working too much on this panel.
I say,
You have to stop.
I literally say, you're crazy. Stop.
Yes,
Full
yes,
stop.
it's
You're
true.
crazy. Full stop. Too many things.
Now, when you're working, are you using traditional pencils and board and ink, or are you using digital tools and a computer to create the artwork?
Okay, well, when I started my career, obviously it was 23 years ago. I started with the traditional tools, with pencil, brushes, paper. And for me, in my opinion, personal opinion, they are the best tools to do this work. Obviously, being at work, you have to respect deadlines. You have to be able to make correction, to make changes on your work as fast as possible. So in this at this point, the digital is very is better, absolutely. So at some point, I started to work totally in digital. But when I can, for example, when I do covers or commission or special pieces, I really like to come back to the paper, because I think that if you want to do this work in a very good way, before doing it in digital, you have to learn how to do it on paper, because the paper has the real is real natural, is very natural. So I think the digital itself sometimes it's cold. Instead, I like to see the imperfection of the paper. Sometimes the designs make with a real brush are so
Material.
materic, and sometimes it's not so easy to have it in digital. You can simulate it, but it's
No.
not the same. Anyway, obviously, these are things that maybe only an artist can see. The readers, I
But
don't think they can
there's
see
the
that.
matter of the mistakes, for example.
Yeah.
With the digital, of course, if you make a mistake, okay, Control Z,
Yeah.
bye-bye mistake. With paper, okay, if you are inking by hands, it's a problem. Okay, I made a
Yes.
mistake. Oh my God, I have to do it again. So it's quite different. If you have a tight deadline, of course, digital is better.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the editors like it because they knows that
Yeah,
when
yes.
you can do a page instead of speak with the two person, one that make the pencils, another one that make the inks, they can deal with only one person that makes the layout
Yeah.
and the inks. There isn't pencil in the between.
You do everything.
So
Yeah.
you cut away at least 1/3 of the time, maybe more.
So does that give you more time to work on a page because you're basically providing the finished work and it's not like you're doing that pencil step and sending it off?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Less steps. Absolutely. It's easier. It's easier. It's faster. It's for the production, to respect the deadline in the best way possible, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. absolutely.
Now, I know I'm a hobby cartoonist, so when I have free time, which is very rare these days, I like to sit down and draw. And since I work in technology, I like to get the pencil out and work with ink on the board. I find it very therapeutic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, is it difficult, the language differences between the DC offices and where you are, when you get a script in, converting that script into a page, is it an easy process for you to do the storytelling?
Well, yes, obviously.
Maybe it's
Well,
easier for you than Bonelli because
yes.
he
Yeah.
prefers American style. So,
Yes,
yeah.
obviously, yes. As she's saying, I prefer the American way to work because they give to you more freedom to obviously, when I read a script, for me it's automatic that I start to see the images immediately. Immediately. When, when I started to read, I started to see the images on the board or on the screen.
Yeah.
And the fact that they give to you more freedom obviously makes the work easier, and sometimes even better, because obviously if you have freedom, you can use your skills in the best way.
Yeah.
If instead of, for example, sometimes when I worked for Italy, for example, I haven't all this freedom.
No.
Because they were really specific on some aspects, and sometimes it's very good because you can learn a lot from this kind of work. Sometimes is a cage. So
yeah, the European work is very European, especially the Italian script is very fixed. So the script is like, okay, she's turning right and she's looking. It's very precise. So you don't have all this freedom. So sometimes you feel a little bit overwhelmed by all this information that you have to respect. So it's better to be a little bit more free than feeling in a cage. No, it's like I don't know if I gave the idea of it.
Right. I know that the Marvel style has traditionally been the artist is given a very broad description of what the page is. The DC style was always a panel by panel breakdown on the page, and I'm guessing what you're saying is that it was even more precise in Italian comics because they would tell you exactly what everyone is doing, which would take some of the freedom away from you.
Yes. Sometimes in Italy, for example, they tell you even the specific direction where the characters have to look at in the panel. And sometimes it doesn't work for you, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
So sometimes
because sometimes who does the script, who writes, doesn't draw. So he cannot imagine what it should happen. So okay, draw it in this way, but that's not possible. So you have sometimes you have to explain. Okay, it's not possible because you have to explain blah 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 blah. That sometimes
maybe it's possible in their mind.
Well,
on the paper is not so good.
They are artists too. They write, of course.
Yes.
They're creative.
Yeah.
But there is a big difference between understanding how to tell a story and thinking how it would look good. Because once you have to start putting it down on the board or on the computer screen, it's definitely more of a challenge.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you're getting work, Maria, when you're getting work to ink, are they sending you scans of the pencils and then you're working on it digitally and then just sending that back? And how does that allow you that flexibility to be a creator and work on someone else's pencils?
Well, normally I ink digitally, yes, because it's always the same matter. It's the deadline. You have to respect them. So, and sometimes you deal with a person who is very jealous about these things. Of course, he's right. And sometimes submit the inks, and you, of course, you ask advices to the penciler. Of course, well, I'm a penciler, okay, but in my little experience of inker, of course, I asked the penciler if it was okay. Okay, do you like your pencil with this style, with my style? So if I have to do it again, oh my God, the deadline would not be respected. So if, for example, the penciler tells me some corrections, okay, well, digital is easier, absolutely. Okay, give me a scan, I will do it, no problem. So it's, yeah, digitally absolutely is the best way for me.
All right. So here's a question, I guess, for the both of you. I'm not familiar with European comics beyond maybe some, British imprints. So American comics are dominated by superheroes and big action. So I'm wondering what Italian comics are like, and are they more down to earth, or are they, again, sort of the superheroes?
More down to earth. They are very realistic. They are more heroes than superheroes. They are different from various aspects. For example, the Italian comics are like I show you.
Ok. Guarda, c'è la cavalcata di morto laggiù, c'è Tex, guarda, quello grosso, sulla sinistra.
No, non vendo. Ok. This is an American comic.
Okay, let's start the lesson.
And this is an Italian comic. This is. Ecco qua. This is. It's very. Is the size of the book is obviously is.
Even the pages.
Yes.
94. 94. No.
Instead of 22 pages, the story are 94 pages.
94 pages.
94. Or for text, for example, they are 110. It means that to make a single book, you spend about 6-8 months. And sometimes, for example, once when I drew text, I made a very long story. Obviously the pages are not in colors, but in black and white, totally in black and white.
Fabio, no?
Yes.
Non sei tu questo.
This is my master. This is the master that taught me to make comics. And I have to say that for a comic artist doing this kind of work, especially in the first part of his career, for me is very important. It would be very important because you have to deal with the page without colors, without tricks, without nothing. There is only black and white, and if you are able to work in black and white, you can work in all the ways.
Your mistakes pop up.
Yes, yeah, obviously, because it's easier to see the mistakes in this way. Because sometimes when you work in colors, for example, if you make a mistake, maybe the colorist can cover it. Sometimes no. Sometimes I make it worse. But sometimes
it depends.
It depends from the colorist.
There are such good colorists. There are good colorists.
Yes,
very
obviously.
good colorists.
But anyway, they are very different. For example, Tex is absolutely not an Italian character because he's a ranger.
He's American.
He's American ranger. He's a Western comics, for example. Dylan Dog is an horror. He has an horror comics. It took place in England. Tex in USA. For example, Dampier took place around Europe, in USA too, around the world. So, in this kind of comics, I'm very near the reality.
Very realistic.
Very realistic.
You have to draw existing places. You have to go cities that actually exist. So you have to do the confrontation with reality. So
absolutely.
Very
You sometimes you can change the specific places. They want that you make the places in the exactly way they are. So is very difficult sometimes to match exactly the reality or render it in a good way. But it's a very, very, very good school for an artist, and I am happy to have been working for us so many years on this kind of comics and brings my experience in the American comics.
But you're American inside.
Yes. Yes,
American
absolutely.
inside.
In fact, when I drew the
Me too. I'm American.
Absolutely.
I'm American.
Absolutely. When I drew the comics for Sergio Bonelli Editore, my style was for a lot of people was too American. Maybe for the American people, my style is too European. It's all the time you can't match the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I see that we have about a minute left before we run out of time. If our audience wanted to find out more about you or follow you on a website, is there a site that they can go to?
Yes, obviously. What about me? I have obviously a Facebook page, an account on Twitter, on Instagram, and I have a website that is www.marcosantucciart.com. And about Maria-Laura,
I'm writing it down.
she's writing the.
Okay, I have a very bad calligraphy. Okay, but yeah, if you, yes.
Yeah.
No, you cannot see. Oh my God. Oh yeah. Okay, okay. On like in elementary school. Okay. On Instagram, I'm like ML Sanapo, Sanapo. On Facebook, I ML Sanapo Art. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, Maria, Marco, thank you so much for joining me on Comic Culture today. I'd like to thank you at home for watching.
Pleasure.
We'll hope to see you again soon.